For a brief time in the 1990s, vehicular combat games were all the rage. They were fast, fun, and filled with colorful characters with even crazier cars. And while there were plenty of games that contributed to the road rage, the two main offenders at the time were Sony's Twisted Metal and Activision's own Vigilante 8. As a fan of both, I sometimes wondered which series the critics preferred. To answer that question, I decided to flip through old issues of Electronic Gaming Monthly to see what their review crew had to say about all of this car-crazed chaos. Now, in case you're wondering, EGM reviewed a total of 8 Twisted Metal games and 3 titles in the Vigilante series. That basically includes every single Twisted Metal game, with the exception of the 2012 reboot. It also means they covered both of the Vigilante 8 games, though not all of the ports. This is one of those lists where we're really only missing one major release, and that's only because EGM folded a few years before it came out. What we're going to do today is count down the best and worst games in both series using Electronic Gaming Monthly's own words and scores. There's no editorializing here, we're only going to focus on what the critics said back when these games first came out. So go, grab your favorite ice cream truck and load it full of napalm, because this is another explosive episode of EGM Ranks Twisted Metal and Vigilante 8.
Style, sophistication, the ability to launch napalm into oncoming traffic. If these are the things you look for in an automobile, it's time you test drive Twisted Metal 2. Fully automated weaponry, dual rocket launchers, and the new APS flamethrowing system. All standard. Drive the 1997 Twisted Metal 2 on PlayStation from Sony, and let style be your weapon.
Kicking things off at number 11, we have Twisted Metal Small Brawl on the PlayStation. Sony's sanitized take on the classic Twisted Metal series should please tykes looking for some car combat, but series veterans won't be impressed. Cutesy cars, kiddie characters, and firework weapons work within the game's playground premise, but most Twisted Metal fans will likely miss the old kick-ass vehicles and nasty psychopaths. The chunky, ugly visuals and hairband music don't help much either. Luckily, the gameplay is fairly tight, and some of the levels are creative, such as a miniature golf course and the kitchen. Others, however, are too small and too boring to affect the action. This woefully average retread will only keep youngsters entertained. Number 10, Twisted Metal 3 on the PlayStation. While I'm happy to see the Twisted Metal series finally get an upgrade in graphics, I'm not too happy with the new physics engine. The cars don't handle anywhere near as nice as they did before. I especially hate the way the cars flip around so much. It's an opening for mucho cheapness. Just use the freeze burst on the helpless victim. The lackluster arenas don't help the score. Decent, but extremely disappointing. Number 9, Twisted Metal 4 on the PlayStation. I don't understand why this game is updated and rehashed every year like it's a sports game. The first two were fine, never got into Twisted Metal before, and number 4 didn't do anything to convince me that I'm missing out. Multiplayer is no fun with any more than 2 players, and the cars are so small that you can hardly determine what's a weapon and what's a power-up. If you've played Twisted Metal before, then it's all too familiar territory. Number 8, Twisted Metal Head-On the PlayStation Portable. You know that kid, the one that always played by himself at recess, crashing Hot Wheels cars into each other? Well, this is the game he imagined. A demolition derby clattering with sounds of machine gun fire and industrial demolition. A strange place where cops, army men, and evil clowns seek to murder each other for no particular reason. Twisted Metal has circled the blocks a few times, and it shows. I resisted the archaic control scheme. I scoffed at the charmless characters and simple jousting patterns. But as the later, larger levels opened up, I started to get a feel for the combat. Head-On grew on me. Number 7. Twisted Metal Black Online on the PlayStation 2. Picture a bunch of human-controlled cars zipping around arenas with gunfire, missile, and special attacks flying every which way. It's fast and furious vehicular combat the way it's meant to be played. No more cheating AI, no more having to eliminate your drone opponents methodically, and no more lonely matches. Just keep your expectations low and take the game's name literally. This is little more than an online version of the PlayStation 2 title that we played a year ago. Twisted Metal Black Online has a few minor additions, but none of the new stages or cars you'd want in a sequel. But hey, this one's a freebie. Who am I to complain? Number 6, Vigilante 8 on the PlayStation. I'm gonna state the obvious. If you like Twisted Metal in any way, you have to check out Vigilante 8. Luxo Flux has raised the bar of quality in every conceivable area. Graphics and animation, sound, level design, and realistic game physics. Totally destructible environments is the icing on the cake. The action can drag on at times since the vehicles can take a great deal of damage before dying. That's a very minor complaint. Number 5, Vigilante 8 Second Offense on Dreamcast. For the most part, Vigilante 8 Second Offense is a decent, if not slightly buggy game. Collision detection is loose in places. Several times I passed directly through an enemy vehicle at close range. It'd be nice to have the handling a bit tighter as well. It's tough to keep some of the cars in a straight line. Yet, even with these drawbacks, it's still really fun. Because of the fast frame rate, 4 players is the most functional I've played of any of the car combat games to date. Number 4, Twisted Metal 2 World Tour on PlayStation. I know a lot of people weren't wild about the mindless ride that Twisted Metal was. But how could you not enjoy blowing other cars up? I love Twisted Metal, and I love Twisted Metal 2 just as much. It brought out the little Mad Max in me. The levels and special moves are the only real improvement to the game. The different cities add that certain themed touch that works well here. I only wish the designers could have improved on the game's engine somewhat. Just about everything looks like it did in the original. Same lame explosions, same lame missile firing, same lame machine gun attacks. Give us a better looking game for part 3. Number 3, Vigilante 8 on the Nintendo 64. All I have to say is, sweet! Finally, we get to blow up a bunch of cars on the Nintendo 64. It's about time. Vigilante 8 is everything the PlayStation version is and much more. The added solo and multiplayer modes and secrets make the game even more fun than usual. The frame rate drops a bit in the high-res mode, but it still looks decent. Thankfully, the frame rate doesn't drop much at all when playing 4-player games, in low res. Number 2, Twisted Metal Black on the PlayStation 2. As a fan of these types of games, and this series in particular, I couldn't be more happy. Twisted Metal lost its luster years ago, but now it's truly back, in black. Yeah. It floors me that the original developers were able to step back into the saddle years later and dig the franchise up from the grave. The gameplay that made Twisted Metal popular is returned. The biggest surprise is the 7-ish feel that gives the combat a unique edge. It goes beyond just running over briefcase-carrying pedestrians. The dark humor knows just when to give you a good kick in the balls. And isn't that really what you're looking for from a video game? And finally, at number 1, Twisted Metal on the PlayStation. There's nothing else like this game. Where else can you throw napalm out of an ice cream truck, smash into Diablos, and run over pedestrians? With a choice of 12 vehicles, all of which vary in armor, weapons, speed, and agility, any gamer, including myself, will never get bored. The control, which is very precise and clean, varies from vehicle to vehicle, as do the endings. Any game with Molotov cocktails, exploding cop cars, and napalm ice cream cones has got to be good.
Military school won't be so bad. And we'll call you every day. You'll see. The year will go by fast.
But it really was the truck.
Rated T for teen.
PlayStation.
Hey, thanks for watching us analyze these classic reviews. If you like this kind of content, then you should know that we post episodes just like this almost every week. We have a whole playlist full of similar lists, including Mario, Sonic, the Ninja Turtles, Castlevania, Contra, Resident Evil, Armored Core, Streets of Rage, Final Fight, Ridge Racer, and more. Ooh, that's a lot of classic reviews. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite vehicular combat game? It doesn't have to be from the Twisted Metal or Vigilante 8 series, but if we're just playing the odds here, it probably is going to be from one of those two franchises. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week featuring a very special April Fool's episode featuring Nintendo Power. We're also going to be diving into Mangavania tomorrow, whatever that is. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.